Hi, Guy. Tonight we wander through a land that smells of sun-warmed stone and dates, where dust turns to silk under your feet, and mountains whisper secrets no man repeats in daylight. Somewhere in the folds of this ancient empire, a prince, loved by his people and feared by his enemies, steps away from his golden bed each night. He walks into the dark with no torch, no guards, and no explanation. He does not return until dawn. You've probably never left a velvet mattress to sleep on cold mountain stone with only owls and regret for company. But he does. Every night, without fail. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. But only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Let me know in the comments where you're listening from and what time the night found you. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The palace is quieter than usual tonight. Quieter than it should be. You tread through corridors veiled in saffron silk and sandalwood smoke. Every guard you pass avoids your eyes, not out of rudeness, but reverence, or maybe fear. You hear a door shut softly, 2 levels below the throne room. No rush. Just a gentle, practiced close, as if the door itself were trained to not disturb the shadows. You follow, of course. Down spiral stairs carved with Zoroastrian prayers, past niches where forgotten gods sleep, and into the old corridor. Cooler, lined in dark blue tiles, cracked with age. Somewhere beyond, a single lantern flickers out, and then nothing. He's gone again. You've tracked him before. Or tried. One time, you reached the garden gates, just in time to see his white stallion vanish into the trees. The air had smelled like rain even though the sky was dry. Another night, you found only footprints in the dust. Bare footprints. He hadn't even worn his sandals, not that he ever returned with blisters. Tonight, the air is different. There's no breeze, but the torch in your hand sputters anyway, as if afraid. You glance back. The corridor is longer than before. You could swear the geometry of the palace changes when he leaves. It's like the stones themselves exhale. You reach the stables. His horse is gone, but the gate still swings open. That gate, it's iron, mind you, never creaks unless he passes through. You've asked the stable master. You've even tested it yourself. It screamed like a tortured trumpet when you pushed it. But with him, silence. Like the mountain invites him and bites him, and only him. No saddle, no sword. Just the prince in the dark. He never tells anyone where he goes. Not even the general, not even his mother. And you, most curious of all, are left with the feeling that if you follow him too far, you won't come back the same. You step out into the moonlight. And you wonder, not for the first time, what calls to him so sweetly that he would trade silk sheets and a concubine's song for stone and wind, and why no one dares ask. The palace is never silent, not really, even in sleep. Its marble veins pulse with memory. But tonight, something simus extra stills the halls. You think it might be the absence of questions. No one asks where he goes. Not the advisors, not the guards, not even the cooks who notice his breakfast left untouched each morning. It's not fear exactly. It's respect for a boundary everyone senses but can't name, like staring into a well and knowing it doesn't end in water. Back in the east wing, under the carved eaves where peacocks used to dance, 2 handmaidens whisper near a drying rack. One swears she heard his voice echoing twice last week, one voice strong, one voice broken. The other says nothing, only traces her thumb along the hem of a prayer shawl and whispers, "The shadows answer him." You slip past them, past the moon-washed columns, past the hanging vines that were imported from distant Babylonia. Their scent is soft, like spoiled honey, and somehow always stronger when he's gone. Coincidence? Maybe. Or maybe the vines remember. In the center courtyard stands a statue. The prince, sculpted in black marble, his arms open wide, palms turned up, not in welcome, but in offering. There's a story they don't teach at court. The original sculptor carved him with a smirk, but the mouth kept changing. Every morning the artist would find the lips had tightened. By the third week he gave up and left Persia for good. His apprentice claims he now carves in silence, never touching faces. Tonight, the moon spills over the statue's feet like liquid milk. You notice a glimmer near its base, a string of black beads. Prayer beads, fresh, still warm from skin. And that's when you hear it again. Footsteps. Not his, yours. But behind yours, a asterisk click. Soft, deliberate, measured. It echoes like a heartbeat through the cedarwood flooring. You turn. Nothing. Just the flutter of a silken banner catching air that isn't there. The palace has ways of keeping its secrets. By morning, the prince will return. His fingers will be ink-stained. He'll say nothing during council. He'll trace unseen lines into the wood of the table while generals bark about borders and taxes. But tonight, he's already gone. Gone past the pools where lotuses bloom only under starlight. Gone through the tunnel only the architect and the wind remember. Gone into a place where maps curl at the corners, unwilling to describe what's waiting. And you? You stay. But now you know he speaks to something. And maybe, just maybe, that something speaks back. You linger in the courtyard longer than you mean to. The stillness here is different. Not peaceful, asterisk, asterisk, watchful, asterisk. The kind of quiet that presses on your eardrums like someone's holding their breath beside you, waiting to see if you'll notice. The statue stares forward, unblinking. You swear its eyes weren't this deep set yesterday. You shake the thought off. Probably just the lighting. Just as you start to leave, a whisper brushes your shoulder. It's not a sound exactly. It's like a change in pressure. You spin, heart thudding. But again, nothing. Only the scent of myrrh and something faintly metallic. Like blood that's been polished. You walk toward the western arch, where the shadows grow longest. That's where you first heard the old falconer's voice. You remember him, don't you? Skin like cracked pottery, eyes clouded but somehow always following you. Most people ignored him. But he saw too much. Knew too much. He once caught you watching the prince's chamber, said something strange before vanishing into the spice market crowd. Asterisk. Don't follow his shadow. It follows back. Asterisk. Asterisk. You thought he was mad. But tonight? You're not so sure. At the far end of the corridor, you spot something carved into the stone lintel. It's faint, nearly gone from years of wind and rain. But the symbols are there. 3 dots, a curved crescent, and a jagged line like lightning. You've seen them before. On the prince's ring. No one knows what they mean. The court scribes tried to trace it once, but every scholar who studied the mark reported the same thing: headaches, fevers, and dreams of sinking into black sand. One even went blind for 3 days, muttering about asterisk, asterisk, a throne beneath the mountains. Asterisk, asterisk. Historians still argue whether the symbol predates the Achaemenid dynasty or if it was introduced by wandering mystics from beyond the Oxus River. The official stance? Decorative, nothing more. Of course, that's what they always say when something gets too interesting. You reach the arch, and behind it lies the overgrown garden, untouched, save for a single path worn into the moss. No footprints. Just worn. Like someone walks it nightly. Like the earth remembers. The scent changes here. Jasmine, yes. But now mingled with ash. Not fire ash. Something older. Like the dust that clings to scrolls no one dares open. At the garden's heart stands an old date tree, twisted with age, bark smooth from centuries of hands brushing against it. The tree leans slightly, almost as if bowing toward the palace. Beneath it, the ground dips into a hollow, half filled with black stones, each one marked with scratches. Not random, Deliberate. You kneel. Your fingers graze one stone, and for a moment, just a moment, you swear you hear a voice. Soft. Male. Speaking a language you don't know, but somehow understand. And then, silence. The prince is long gone by now. But you're beginning to realize he never truly leaves. He just goes somewhere you can't follow. Not yet. The garden is still, but not empty. You rise slowly from the stone circle, unsure if you imagine the voice or if something ancient just brushed the edge of your hearing. The tree above you groans, not from the wind, because there is none, but from memory. Old bark, old roots, old secrets. As you step back, the stones shift slightly underfoot. Not roll, easy shift. Like something breathing beneath the soil. You freeze. The sensation passes, but the memory of it does not. Back at the palace, no alarm rings. No torches are lit. Because no one knows you're here. Or maybe they all do, and no one wants to follow. You glance up. The moon has shifted. Higher now. Fuller. It shines through the lattice of the old watchtower, where the prince's favorite hawk once nested. The bird is gone, of course. One day it flew east and never returned. Yet sometimes, the tower still rustles, as if something perches there unseen, waiting. You return to the garden gate, passing the old fountain. It hasn't run in decades. But tonight, it's wet. You touch the marble lip. Water. Cold. And not just cold. Asterisk, asterisk, fresh, asterisk. From where? Beneath the moss, you notice a faint channel carved into the stone. Thin, winding, leading away from the fountain toward the outer wall. You kneel again. Brush the moss aside. There, embedded in the path, is a metal clasp. Rusted, but familiar. You've seen this mechanism before, in the old maps of Persepolis, beneath the Temple of Atar. An underground channel system meant for ceremonial purification. But those channels collapsed centuries ago. So what's flowing now? You tug the clasp. Nothing. You press down instead. And asterisks click. The sound is like the sigh of a very old door finally giving in. A section of earth near the base of the date tree sinks an inch. Quietly, you stare. You move closer. You notice that what looked like shadow is actually an opening. Narrow, sloped, and just large enough for a single man to slide through. You press your ear near the edge. Wind, but not from outside. The air here moves like breath. Like exhale, and within that breath, a sound. Rhythmic, pulsing, like stone cracking in time with a heartbeat. You lean back, and suddenly it makes sense. This is the prince's door. His escape, yes, but more than that, a path not away from the palace but beneath it. He never rides into the mountains. He descends into them. No wonder his horse returns without a scratch. No wonder no one ever sees him leave. The walls don't lose him. They swallow him. And still, no one dares ask. You brush your hands against the cold lip of the hidden entrance, feeling a strange warmth beneath the stone. Something calls from below, but it's not your name. Not yet. You don't move. You just listen. The sound below isn't quite human. It's too slow to be breath, too deep to be wind, and too rhythmic to be stone settling. It's like something ancient is thinking, waiting, dreaming. You could almost swear it's asterisk aware of you now. Your fingers twitch against the edge of the opening, but you don't step inside. Not tonight. Instead, you back away slowly, eyes fixed on the darkness below the roots of the date tree, wondering how many footsteps, how many confessions, have passed down that slope. Did he always go alone? Or did others follow once, long ago, and simply never come back? You step into the moonlight again. It feels brighter now, sharper. The courtyard has changed, subtly. Or maybe it's just you who's changed. You pass through the garden gate, the air behind you growing still as if the earth just sealed its lips again. Back inside the palace, you find yourself staring at one of the great marble walls. It's blank, or it should be, but now, Under this slant of silver moonlight, you notice a pattern. Faint, like something drawn and then erased. You lean in. It's writing, carved so finely it might have been done with a needle. You trace it with your fingertips. A single phrase repeats over and over. Asterisk. Speak to the shadow, or it will speak for you. Asterisk. Asterisk. There's no signature, no mark of authorship, and no attempt to hide it, because it was never meant for just anyone. Only those who noticed. You step back. Suddenly, you remember the palace architect, Dariush, son of Samira, a man famous for building temples that hummed when you whispered into their corners. He vanished after the prince's coronation. Most assume he died. But a servant once claimed to have seen him beneath the palace, barefoot, eyes closed, tracing circles into the stone with a blade of bronze. Historians still argue whether he created a labyrinth under the capital, or if the rumors were just embellishments, political tools meant to make the young prince seem mythic. You know better now, because you've touched the edge of it. The prince doesn't disappear into myth. He walks straight into it, and somehow returns. Only, when he does, he's never quite the same. One night, after a particularly brutal border raid, he came back with ash in his hair. Not blood, asterisk ash. And in the council meeting the next morning, he interrupted the general's plan with a single sentence. The river will flood in 4 days. Move the villages. Asterisk, asterisk. No reports, no messengers. Just a whisper from the dark. 4 days later, a flash flood swallowed the valley whole. He was right. No one asked how. No one asked why he knew. And no one dared ask where he'd heard it. But you're starting to suspect it wasn't from a general or a god. It was from something far older than either. And it lives in the shadow beneath this palace. You return to your chambers, but you don't sleep. Not because of fear, though something primal in your bones trembles, but because the palace itself hums tonight, as if all its stone and silk and blood remembers something you've just begun to understand. You sit by the window, watching the distant ridge where the moon brushes the Zagros peaks. That's where the old poems say the world was first dreamed and where the gods buried their secrets beneath slabs of whispering stone. You're not supposed to believe that anymore. The new scribes say the old stories were metaphors, that gods never walked the earth, and that no prince could survive a conversation with shadows. But you've seen the prince's eyes. Eyes that have stared into something no war can match. And you know, he doesn't walk into darkness to escape. He walks into it to asterisk. Negotiate. The following morning, a rumor creeps through the palace like incense smoke. A scout returned early from the southern frontier, pale and stammering. He found an enemy encampment entirely abandoned. No blood, no bodies, no signs of struggle. Just footprints, hundreds of them, all facing the same direction, away, as if something had warned them off. The prince doesn't address it in court. He simply tightens the leather binding on his gauntlets and nods as if this was always part of the plan. The generals look relieved. The scribes scribble faster. And you watch him, because in the flicker of candlelight, his shadow doesn't match his posture. It leans forward, slightly ahead of him, eager, almost leading. Later that day, you return to the garden. The date tree is still, the hidden path beneath it sealed once again. But now there's a mark in the soil, a boot print, larger than the prince's, deeper. The heel gouged, like whoever stood there had waited, and then turned away. The print faces the palace. You kneel, press your hand to the dirt, it's warm. That night, you hear something again. Not footsteps, not whispers, just movement. Like silk sliding across polished marble. It pulls your eyes to the north corridor, the disused one, where even the mice don't run. You don't want to go, but you do. The corridor breathes cool against your skin, like stepping into a cave from sunburnt stone. It smells of old scrolls and damp iron. Your candle flickers, but doesn't die. At the far end, a doorway you've never noticed before stands open, not ajar. Open, and from inside, a voice speaks, not loud, not urgent, just familiar. It's the prince. But he's not speaking Persian, and he's not speaking to you. You stay in the dark, just outside the threshold. And you listen. You barely breathe. The voice inside flows like water over old rocks, smooth, steady, too calm to be anything human. The prince's tone is quiet, but not reverent. It's conversational, like speaking to an equal or a rival. You hear his footsteps as he moves within the chamber, not pacing, circling. Occasionally, he pauses. Each time he stops, the other voice answers. Not in words you understand, but in rhythms. Like breath drawn through dry reeds. Hushed, ancient, untranslatable. You want to look. You really do. But something inside you, some old part of your brain that remembers cave lions and poisoned wells, keeps you frozen in the shadows. There's a long pause. Then the prince speaks again, his voice lower now, almost ashamed. "Then I'll do it," he says, "but not the way you want." And the breathy answer is laughter. Not cruel, not kind, just inevitable. The prince emerges moments later. His face is unreadable. His eyes don't register you. Not because he doesn't see you, but because he sees something else. Still, somewhere you haven't been, and maybe can't follow. He walks past you silently. His cloak brushes your sleeve and leaves behind the scent of dust and crushed violets. You shiver. Inside the chamber, the light dims, or maybe the dark grows stronger. You dare a glance around the threshold. It's empty now, stone walls. A simple altar. Carved obsidian, scorched at the base. A bowl filled with sand. 3 black feathers resting on top. Nothing else. You step back quickly. Later that night, you return to the tower library, the one no one visits, because the stairs lean just slightly the wrong way. You dig through forgotten codices, unlabeled scrolls, and brittle folios until your fingers ache, and then you find it. Buried in a commentary on royal dreams, written by a scholar exiled for inappropriate truths, a passage underlined in faded ochre. Asterisk. Before war, the true heir must speak with the shadow of the realm, not his own, but the empire's. Only then can the land decide who returns with breath. Asterisk. Asterisk. You sit in the dust, scroll shaking in your lap. Historians still argue whether this passage refers to a literal rite or a poetic metaphor for introspection. The consensus? Folklore. Romantic nonsense. But you know better. You've seen him speak to what isn't there. You've seen him listen. And now you understand the real reason the prince never sleeps in his own palace. Because the walls don't rest. Because the stones remember. Because the shadow he speaks to each night doesn't live outside the palace. It lives beneath it. And it waits for war. Days pass, but the feeling doesn't. Not in your chest, not in your bones. The palace feels altered now, not visibly, but viscerally. As though it's aware that you've seen too much, or not enough. The prince carries on as usual. He attends meetings. He walks among his people. He even smiles at the children who run barefoot across the rose-tiled courtyard. But he always pauses, just slightly, when he passes a mirror, like he's checking whether it still reflects just him. One morning, after a routine sparring session, he retires early to his chamber. You linger in the training yard. There, where the shadows of the columns fall just so, you notice something strange. His footprints. 2 sets. Identical in size. One leads into the yard. The other circles. Once. Twice. Then vanishes near a garden wall. There's no exit there. And yet gone. That night, you wander past the Hall of Sandalwood again. The wind has shifted. You catch the scent of smoke, not from the kitchens, but from sacred resin, the kind used only in pre-battle rites. No battles have been announced. You follow the scent to the prince's private altar, a stone table beneath a canopy of bronze bells. No one ever hears them ring, and yet they always sway slightly when he's near. You find a fresh offering, a strip of crimson cloth, folded twice, and a single date pit resting on top. You remember the stories. In ancient times, warriors would send a pit to the underworld before battle, so the dead would know where to wait for them, or where not to wait. The next day the prince holds court again. A messenger arrives, trembling, clutching a clay tablet wrapped in linen. He kneels, presents it to the prince, whispers something. The prince's gaze hardens. Not fear, not anger, recognition. He dismisses the court early. You catch a glimpse of the tablet before the scribes carry it away. A single sigil burned into the clay, shaped like a bird's eye and a dagger crossing a crescent. You've seen it once before, etched faintly into the saddle of his warhorse. And that night, he vanishes again. But not like before. This time, the palace feels anxious. The walls colder, the light thinner. You walk the halls and see servants gathered in twos and threes, whispering without words, their faces turned subtly away from the north. The prince's mother retreats to her chamber, lighting a lamp that never burns unless a storm is coming. The royal astrologer climbs to the top of the tower and doesn't descend all night. Something is shifting. Not politically, not militarily, but underneath. And you realize with sudden clarity, the prince isn't preparing for war. He's preparing for the asterisk conversation before the war, the one no general understands, the one no historian records, the one he must have every time blood is about to stain the sand, the one with the shadow. You don't sleep. No one does. The palace has entered one of its strange moods, the kind that warps time. Hours stretch. Whispers echo longer than they should. The oil lamps flicker, even without a draft. The air feels charged, not like lightning, but like something beneath it is breathing slower, deeper, and waiting. You wander again, compelled more by instinct than decision. Your feet take you to the archive hall, where ancient maps line the walls and scrolls are locked behind glass made from volcanic sand. The room is empty, officially closed for repairs, but the door creaks open as if expecting you. Inside, you find an open scroll on the central table. Not just any scroll. The prince's scroll. His handwriting is distinct. Straight lines that taper like spearheads, dots placed with surgical care. But this isn't a letter. It's a record. A dialogue. You lean closer and read. Asterisk. Night 3. It asked for a name. I gave it none. It already knew mine. Asterisk. 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 Night 8. It laughed again. Said I'd die less stupid than my ancestors. I thanked it. It hissed like rain. Asterisk. 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 Night 12. It warned me of fire, and then showed me where. Asterisk. Asterisk. The final entry is shorter. Asterisk. Tonight, I speak first. Asterisk. Asterisk. The ink is still wet. You nearly drop the scroll. Historians still argue whether the monarchs of ancient Persia practiced shadow rites, an alleged ritual involving dreams, caves, and a trance-like communion with ancestral memory. Some believe it was merely poetry disguised as prophecy. Others suggest it was a form of self-induced madness passed through royal bloodlines. But what if it wasn't madness? What if it was memory? Or worse, dialogue. You return the scroll, careful not to smudge the ink. The candles overhead dim, not flicker. Somewhat dim, as if something pressed gently on the flame's throat. You turn to leave, but pause. The wall behind you has shifted. No. Asterisk revealed. A thin seam you hadn't noticed before. A slit in the marble, now wide enough to see inside. Beyond it, a narrow chamber carved from rough basalt. No polish, no decor. Just a single object resting on a pedestal, a mask. Midnight black, smooth. no eye holes. You can't explain why, but your breath hitches. Not from fear, from understanding. He wears it, doesn't he? When he speaks to it. To asterisk them. Because you don't face shadows with your face. You face them with something deeper. You back away, your heartbeat distant and muffled, like it's retreating further into your chest, trying not to make noise. Later that night, the palace bells toll 3 times. They never ring at this hour. They're not supposed to. Servants glance at one another unsure. Soldiers grip their spears tighter. Somewhere, a child cries, and no one hushes them. You step onto the balcony and see it. A thin line of torches moving across the outer ridge. The prince, alone, descending the mountain on foot, bareheaded, and in his hand, not a blade, but the mask. Because tonight, he doesn't ask for permission. Tonight, he speaks first. You don't follow him, not because you're afraid, though you are, but because something inside you understands this isn't a moment to asterisk witness. It's a moment to asterisk survive. Watching would change you. Following would erase you. So you stay. From the balcony, from a distance, from the edge of the waking world. The torchlight moves slowly down the slope, each flame perfectly spaced, as though marching in rhythm with a breath no one can hear. Behind him, the palace seems to asterisk recoil. Arches slouch, curtains tremble, the air presses low, and then you notice it, his shadow. It's not following him. It's asterisk walking beside him, matching step for step. The figure beside him is wrong, not in form, but in movement. It drifts just a little too smoothly, turns just a hair too sharply. A shadow should mirror Toll. This one, Pornell decides. You feel something twist in your stomach, as if some part of your body remembers a time when shadows weren't harmless, when they had names, and tasks, and rules. The prince and his companion reach the tree line, and then, like a thread snipped clean, the light vanishes. You remain there, hours maybe, unsure. The night doesn't pass so much as settle, like dust over a forgotten room. Eventually, your legs move again. You wander the palace expecting it to be changed. And it is. Slightly, subtly. Doors are unlocked that should be sealed. A brazier burns cold with blue flame. The royal falconer's tower has been cleared out completely. Feathers scattered like falling snow. No one admits to it. No one even looks up. And in the eastern hall, a servant girl drops a tray of pomegranates when she sees something in the mirror behind her. Not her reflection, but her reflection blinking at the wrong time. The next morning, the council convenes. The prince's chair is empty. Not vacant. Empty. The guards say he hasn't returned. The horse is in the stable, unsaddled, its mane damp with night sweat. But no sign of the prince. Until noon. He walks into the throne room barefoot, face streaked with ash. A single vine wound around his wrist. No one speaks. He sits, and finally he smiles. Not at anyone. Not with anyone, just smiles. And in that moment, every window in the palace darkens slightly. Just a breath. And you realize, the conversation is over. And whatever answered him, accepted, or maybe warned, he rises. You'll mobilize at dawn, he says, voice soft. They'll surrender by moonrise. The general sputters. But we haven't even... They know, the prince interrupts. Now, asterisk. And he leaves the hall. Later, the scribes try to record what happened, but the ink won't dry properly. Scrolls curl as if protesting. And the ink keeps pooling in the same pattern. A crescent. A mask. A feather. You watch the symbol form again and again, and you wonder, who exactly did the prince speak to out there? And how much of him came back? You find yourself avoiding mirrors, not just because of what the servant girl saw, but because you're beginning to feel something looks back. Not every time. Just enough times that your stomach tightens when you pass a polished surface. Once, you glanced into a basin of still water and saw your face. Except your eyes were already watching you, like it had been there first. Around the palace, the atmosphere warps. Advisors speak in clipped tones. The royal astrologer won't meet your gaze. Guards double-check shadows before they step into doorways. Even the doves that once filled the garden with their soft murmurs have vanished, flown off or chased off. And the prince? He's everywhere now. Not physically, but in whispers, in footprints, in choices no one questions. The day after his return, he orders the temples along the riverfront to be closed for 7 days. To cleanse the silence, he says. When a priest dares to ask what that means, the prince simply tilts his head and replies, "Them Paul, asterisk. Some silences grow mold. We burn that too." Asterisk. Asterisk. You hear later that night the temples weren't just shuttered, they were sealed, with clay, rope, and something like wax, but darker and humming slightly when touched. In the days that follow, the weather breaks. Not storms, something stranger. The sun shines, but there's no heat. The wind blows, but the trees don't sway. And twice, at dusk, the moon rises where the sun should be. Not full, not crescent, just wrong. Historians still argue whether the Persian concept of shadow dualism, the belief that every living ruler has a spectral twin that guards or guides him, was ever taken seriously. Most say it was metaphor, a way to illustrate the burdens of power, the hidden self, the cost of command. But when you see the prince pause in the hallway and asterisk wait for his shadow to catch up, you're no longer sure it's just a metaphor. One evening you stumble across something strange near the old fountain. A scrap of parchment tucked beneath a stone held down with a single pomegranate seed. The writing is not the prince's. It's childlike, messy, barely legible, but the message is clear. Quit a blowed asterisk. He doesn't sleep because wit a blow dreams. And if it dreams too long, we all drown. Asterisk, asterisk. You stare at the note for a long time. The stone beneath it is warm. You don't show anyone. That night, the prince walks the halls again. No guards, no cloak, just silence around his steps. And then, just outside the Hall of Masks, you hear him whisper something. 3 words, soft, sharp. Not a name. Not in any language you know. But the shadows around him pause, then resume. Like they heard and agreed. You turn away quickly, afraid you might see your own shadow pause, and ask for something too. You begin to measure time differently now, not by sunrises or council bells, but by the prince's silences. There are the ordinary silences, when he reads, walks, eats. And then there are the other ones, the deep ones, the ones where every breath he takes seems borrowed from somewhere darker. And when those silences stretch too long, the palace stills. No footsteps, no clinking of dishes. Even the fountains seem to hush. During one of these silences, you find yourself drawn, uninvited, to the prince's private library. A crescent-shaped room with shelves so tall they vanish into shadow. The door isn't locked, but it always feels like it should be. Inside you notice something new. The books are rearranged, not alphabetically, not by subject, but by shadow. Those near the window are thick with dust. Those in the corners are warm, recently touched. One shelf in particular draws you. Low, near the ground, tucked behind a curtain of black velvet. There's a single scroll, not labeled, bound in twine soaked with oil. You break the seal, against your better judgment, and unroll the parchment slowly. It's not a royal record. It's a confession, written in jagged, uneven lines. Asterisk. I thought the voice was mine at first. It spoke when I needed it, warned me, guided me, but it never left. Asterisk. Asterisk. Now I wonder, am I ruling? Or is it just using my name? Asterisk, asterisk. You sit back, throat dry. It's him. The prince. But which him? The next morning, at dawn, he appears on the battlements. He doesn't address the troops, doesn't give orders, he just stands, cloak rippling, face unreadable. And then he laughs. Once, short, sharp, like he just remembered the punchline to a joke no one else heard. The generals pretend not to notice. The guards stand straighter. But they saw, and you feel the air thicken, because something is coming. Not a battle, a decision, and he's already made it. That night, you dream of the prince, but not as he is. You see him as a boy, barefoot, walking into a cave lit by no torch, and waiting there in the dark is another child. Identical, but hollow. Eyes like dried ink. No mouth, just the faint shimmer of breath. They sit across from each other and simply stare. And you wake, gasping, just as the mirror in your room hums. Not loudly, not menacingly, just enough to remind you it's not just glass. And the worst part? Your reflection is smiling. You aren't. You cover the mirror the next day. Just a curtain. Just in case. It doesn't help. That night, you wake to find the curtain blown aside, even though your windows are shut. The reflection is normal again. Perfectly normal. Except your shadow moves a half-second slower than you do. You stand still. Watch it catch up. Then you whisper. Asterisk. I'm not him. Asterisk. And your reflection tilts its head. Just slightly. As if to say, asterisk. Not yet. Asterisk. Dash 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 dot dot. Word travels fast across the empire. A foreign ambassador from the west, bronze-skinned, eyes sharp, arrives at the palace bearing scrolls, threats, and what he calls a fair proposal. The prince receives him in the hall of blue sand. No guards, no translators. They speak alone for an hour. When the ambassador leaves, his gait is strange, not injured, just hollow, as though his shoes are heavier than before. No one knows what was said, but later that day, a new star is carved into the old war map, right at the western border, and above it, the prince writes a word no one translates. The old guard sees it, says nothing, only swallows hard. Historians would later claim this was the moment the empire turned. Some say it was brilliance, others, madness, and some still argue whether the prince wrote the future or if it had already been told to him. That night, you wake again. But not in your bed. You're standing in the palace garden, barefoot, alone. The sky is clear. No stars, no moon, just velvet dark. At your feet is a ring of ash, and in your hand, a single obsidian bead. You don't remember walking here, but as you open your palm, the bead rolls to the ground, and the earth beneath it shifts, ever so slightly, like something just rolled over in its sleep. The air presses against your skin, thick as silk. You feel watched, not hunted, not threatened, just evaluated, judged. Then, from somewhere deep beneath your feet, a pulse, a slow thump, like a heart, like an asterisk door. You look up, and he's there. The prince, not quite real, not glowing, not ghostly, just distant, as if he's standing in a version of this same garden, overlapping yours by the width of a breath. He meets your eyes and says softly, Mott goes, asterisk. Do you hear it? Asterisk. You want to say no. But you do. It's the sound of something waking, something old, something not meant to speak aloud. And as the garden fades and you feel yourself sliding back into your bed, or what you hope is your bed, you hear his voice once more. Asterisk. Next time, it wants your name. Asterisk, asterisk. You don't sleep again that night, but the shadows in your room seem very well rested. Morning brings no comfort. The sun rises pale and exhausted, as if it too had been up all night, pacing. The palace begins its day in sluggish silence. Courtiers mumble greetings. Guards blink a fraction too slowly. Even the birds seem unwilling to sing. You overhear a steward whisper, "The prince didn't eat again." But there's no alarm in his voice anymore, just resignation. It's as if everyone has accepted that the prince is no longer tethered by ordinary needs. That whatever he speaks to now feeds him in a way food no longer can. You wander, aimless but guided. Your feet take you to the Hall of Shields, once a gallery of royal victories. Each wall held murals of battles long past, swords raised, blood stylized into crimson ribbons. But today, you find the walls stripped bare. Only dust outlines remain where the shields once hung. In their place, mirrors, dozens of them, tall, lean, unpolished, glass so old it ripples like water. Each tilted slightly inward, angled toward the room's center, where a single obsidian pedestal stands. Empty. You step closer. Your reflection warps as you pass each mirror. Not grotesquely, just wrong. One shows you older, another younger. One shows your eyes too wide, another your mouth too still. You try not to look, but the glances steel themselves. At the pedestal, a plaque is carved in old median. The words glint with faint silver. Asterisk. A crown is only worn in one world at a time. Asterisk, asterisk. You don't know what it means, but it sounds like a warning. Behind you, the door clicks. Not open. Locked. You whirl. No one's there. But now the mirrors are humming. Not loud. Just enough that your teeth itch. You back away slowly, careful not to face any mirror too directly. You've heard the legends about what happens when reflections decide they no longer need permission to move. Then, a sound. Not from outside the hall. From the pedestal itself, like breathing. You lean in against better judgment. There, faintly, carved in a circle barely visible to the eye, are words etched so finely you have to squint. Asterisk. He wore the crown once and it stared back. Asterisk, asterisk. You stumble back, right into a mirror. It doesn't shatter, but it ripples. And for one breathless moment, you see not your own face, but the prince's, smiling, but not his. Smile. This one's too wide, too calm, and entirely still. You run. Back into the corridor, through halls that suddenly seem narrower. The doors are too tall, the windows too far from the floor, as if the palace is remembering an older shape, a different size. By the time you reach your room, your hands are shaking. And outside your door, resting neatly against the wall, a box, wooden, bound in black iron, your name carved on top. Inside, a single item, the mask, and a note, asterisk, it's your turn to listen. Asterisk, asterisk, you don't touch it. Of course you don't. That would mean accepting this, whatever this is. Instead, you close the lid slowly, as though that alone might undo the invitation. But the box doesn't protest. It just waits, like everything else now. You leave it there and step back into the hallway. Everything in the palace feels slightly misaligned. Colors dulled, ceilings higher, the air thinner. A servant walks past you and doesn't blink, doesn't see you, or maybe chooses not to. You're beginning to understand the difference. You return to the garden, hoping for silence. Instead, you find the prince. He's crouched beneath the date tree, fingers tracing the edge of a stone. No guards, no entourage, just him, and something folded in his hand. Thin, bone-white parchment tied with black thread. He doesn't look up when he speaks. Did it give you the mask? You hesitate. Yes. He nods slow. Did it ask for your name yet? You swallow. It said it would. At that he stands, gently, as if the earth beneath him is listening. It's never satisfied with mine, he says. It remembers too many versions of me already. He finally turns to you, eyes sharp but distant, as if part of him is already somewhere else. It will speak gently at first, always does. Asks simple questions: where you were born, what you love, who you've lost. He steps closer. But it's not interested in your answers. It wants to see what you think is worth telling. You ask him the question you've been holding back for nights. What is that? He looks past you, past the garden, past the palace even, and answers, without hesitation. Asterisk. It's the part of the empire that doesn't die when I do. Asterisk. Asterisk. You don't understand. But you know you will. Because the prince doesn't ask if you'll follow him. He knows you will. He simply says, it's better to speak to it before war, not after, and walks toward the altar gate. Later that night, when the palace sleeps, or pretends to, you return to your room. The box is gone, but the mask is on your pillow. Beside it, a mirror, no larger than your palm, obsidian, still warm, and scratched into its back? Asterisk. Ask nothing. Listen well. Asterisk, asterisk. You hold the mask up to your face. It smells of sandalwood and cold iron, lined inside with something soft, like woven hair. The mirror flickers, and you finally hear it. Not a voice, a presence, not in your ears, but in your blood. It doesn't speak in words. It speaks in you, and it says, asterisk. Now we remember together. Asterisk. Asterisk. And as the room tilts gently, floor rising like breath, walls humming low, you understand. This isn't a beginning. It's a asterisk continuation. And you were always part of the conversation. The first time it truly speaks, it doesn't sound like thunder. It sounds like recognition, like someone saying your name, not aloud, but as though you'd forgotten it and they're simply handing it back, gently, without blame. You don't see anything, not really, but the air in your chamber ripples like heat off desert stone. Your skin prickles, your blood thrums like a string pulled tight. The mask in your hands is impossibly heavy now. You sit, slowly, holding the obsidian mirror in your lap. It doesn't reflect anything anymore, just shadow, and within it, Snibe's movement. Not shapes, not forms, but motion, like a river of smoke threading through an endless hallway. As you watch, you begin to hear fragments of voices, dozens, hundreds, maybe more, not speaking to you, just remembering: a queen mourning beneath a fig tree, a child hiding beneath silk sheets during a siege, a farmer singing to a buried blade, hoping for rain. The empire breathes, not through conquest or coin, but through story, the kind too fragile for scrolls, too heavy for the lips, and somehow you are now inside it. You put the mask to your face. It molds instantly, as though it always belonged there. The eye holes show nothing, but you see asterisk everything. A storm without sky, a field of bones wrapped in poetry, a tower made of teeth and ink, a river flowing backwards into a cavern of mouths. You don't flinch, because you understand. None of this is here to frighten you. It's here to asterisk ask you something. What will you carry forward? What version of the prince do you believe in? And you answer, not with words, but with a memory. A boy kneeling in the garden, drawing circles in the dust, listening not to voices, but to asterisk silence, and knowing, somehow, it was waiting to become him. The mirror warms in your hands, the presence shifts, and then it's gone, not vanished, just resting. For now, you remove the mask. The room is exactly as you left it, but it feels bigger, wider, as though more space has been added between the floor and ceiling. Or perhaps, returned. The obsidian mirror lies still in your lap, but in its center, a crack, tiny, deliberate, not damage. A door. You fall asleep without realizing, and for the first time in many nights, your dreams are quiet, not empty, just patient. You wake to sunlight, warm, unbothered, almost mundane. For a moment you think you dreamt everything, the prince, the whispers, the mask. But then you turn your head. The mirror's still there, cracked, quiet, heavy, and beside it, a folded piece of parchment, unmarked, unsealed. You open it with a finger that feels older than yesterday. Inside, the prince's handwriting, unmistakable, asterisk. The shadow listens now. You've given it shape. You've given it limits. Thank you. Asterisk, asterisk, time, shape. I can finally rest when it's my time. Asterisk, asterisk. You reread the final line, slowly. He's not afraid. That's what stands out. He's relieved. Dash, 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 dot, dot. That morning, the court is abuzz. The prince doesn't attend the war council. No one knows where he is. His guards stand dutifully at his chamber door, unaware that he left before dawn with no cloak and no shoes. He left behind only a single object. The mask, resting on the throne. No one dares move it. The general makes plans. The vizier argues about supply chains. But everyone speaks in half-voice, constantly glancing at the empty seat, as though it might answer them. It doesn't. Because now the decisions are asterisk, already known. Not guessed. Not reasoned. Just known. That afternoon, a messenger arrives from the western border, pale and breathless. He collapses at the palace gates, clutching a clay seal marked with 3 symbols. A feather. A crescent. A mirror. The prince's personal mark, though it's never been used outside his hand. The seal opens. Inside, only sand and a thread of ash. And that's enough. The army begins to mobilize. No orders needed, because they understand what you now feel asterisk in your bones. The conversation is finished. The answer was given, and the empire knows what must come next. Dash, 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 dot, dot. That night, you return to the garden. The date tree is still. The air hangs with the scent of crushed herbs and dust. And under the roots, the hollow opens once again. Without your touch, you don't descend. Not tonight. Because you realize something important. The shadow doesn't demand worship. It only wants memory, witness, continuation. So you sit beneath the tree, mask beside you, and begin to write. Not to warn, not to explain, just to asterisk record. Because someday, someone will find the crack in the mirror, and it will speak again. And when it does, they'll need a voice. One already trained to whisper. One who knows how to listen before they answer. One who's been here before, like you. Now, slow your breathing. Let the palace slip away, one stone at a time. No more flickering mirrors. No more footsteps behind doors. No more masks waiting to be worn. Just soft air, the hush of wind through leaves, and the scent of sand cooled by night. You're not in the garden anymore. You're somewhere quieter. A space between stories, between footsteps, between the last word spoken and the next one whispered. The prince is still walking, but not in fear, not in haste. He walks like someone who has already arrived. And you? You've walked far enough tonight. Let the dreams unfold slowly. Let the shadows stay where they are, gentle, unspoken, curious but kind. You've earned rest, not because the story is over, but because your part, for now, is complete. When the mirror calls again, you'll know what to say. Until then, let go. Breathe deeper. Sink into the hush between thoughts, and let the empire keep whispering. Shippo, asterisk, asterisk.